The film opens with a scene showing Walden Dean, a court stenographer, fully immersed in a typing speed competition. His goal is to break the world record of 361 words per minute. At this moment, he has reached 343 words, just a few steps away from the target. On his way to the courthouse later, he meets his friend George, who has an intellectual disability. Walden excitedly tells him that he's very close to breaking the record. George tells him that today's case is shocking and that the criminal doesn't deserve any mercy. Inside the courtroom, it's revealed that the defendant is Norman Bolt, a man who burned his 3-year-old daughter inside the home oven simply because she washed her doll's hair. The room is filled with horror, and Judge Boyd expresses deep astonishment, questioning what could drive a human to such brutality. After presenting the evidence, Norman is sentenced to death for premeditated murder, yet he shows no remorse. Instead, he bursts into laughter and mockery as the verdict is read. During the lunch break, Judge Boyd meets Walden and they discuss the atrocity they just witnessed. Boyd, with gentle surprise, asks why Walden is so determined to pursue this typing competition. Walden replies that he needs a goal to strive for. Boyd advises him to look for a beautiful girl to settle down with instead of chasing what he considers nonsense. Back at home, Walden spends time cleaning his stenograph machine, then writes notes about his day. But the burned child's case forces itself back into his mind, and he wonders in disbelief. How can a human do such a thing? He feels severe nausea and rushes to the bathroom to vomit. Before sleeping, he raises his hands in prayer but doesn't kneel. He says his heart feels heavy today. He saw innocents suffering and God was absent. He admits he understands that God might be busy with greater matters, though he can't imagine anything greater than that poor little girl. Walden feels nauseous again and goes to vomit once more. The next morning, Walden goes to a hospital for tests. In the waiting room, he notices an old man who seems to have just woken from a nightmare. The doctor reassures him that his condition is normal. When Walden explains his symptoms, especially the repeated vomiting, the doctor interprets them as professional stress. As Walden leaves, the old man suddenly grabs him, whispering desperately, "Stop it!" But Walden doesn't understand and apologizes politely before walking away. Elsewhere, the city police are celebrating at the station when a terrified family arrives. The mother cries that her son, Cal, was kidnapped that morning. Detective Bill steps in and asks why she believes it's a kidnapping. She replies that 4 Mexican children have disappeared over the past years, and she suspects the perpetrator targets Mexicans because they don't receive enough attention from the system. But Bill insists they receive full attention like everyone else. In the next scene, Walden returns to the courthouse to record another horrific case. Suddenly, the image of his late mother flashes in his mind, and he collapses unconscious. At the hospital, the doctor informs him that he has a brain tumor called a meningioma. Walden reacts with shock, noting that he once dealt with a woman who had the same tumor, and she ended her life after losing her sanity. He asks if he is going to die, and the doctor reassures him that treatment is possible if he begins immediately. But Walden, remembering his upcoming typing competition, decides to leave despite the doctor's serious advice. Later at the competition, Walden sits before the machine and achieves an incredible speed, 351 words per minute. After the contest ends, a woman named Emily approaches him. She used to work as a stenographer in New York. She praises his skill, then asks him about the secret behind his precision and sharpness. He explains that the talent was passed down from his ancestors, who practiced stenography for more than 5 generations, all of them living in the same town. Walden also reveals to Emily that the machine he types on isn't just a device, but a family inheritance. It's the same machine his father used, and he still clings to it as if it were a piece of his memory. At the police department, Sally approaches Bill to update him with horrifying details. 8 children of Mexican origin have disappeared over the span of a decade, with no real lead ever found. In the evening, Walden visits his father at a local bar. He orders a whiskey, a request that shocks his father since Walden has never tasted it in his entire life. Walden tries to reconnect, suggesting that his father come live with him again, like the good old days. But the father, cold and bitter, refuses, accusing him of wasting his time on a typing competition. Walden pleads with him not to be pessimistic, but his father replies that winning will only give him empty fame that won't feed him or bring him money. Later, Walden stops at a pharmacy to buy medicine for a headache. Suddenly, a robber storms in, threatening the pharmacist with a gun. But in a shocking moment no one expects, Walden smashes a whiskey bottle with full force into the robber's face. When the police arrive, Bill and Sally praise Walden's bravery, but he shyly apologizes, thinking he went too far. They reassure him that he acted like a courageous man. The robber, though severely injured, will survive. Back home, Walden opens an old notebook from his childhood. Memories return. his cruel mother who never stopped humiliating him, and the daily fights that filled the house between his mother and father. Walden used to hide in his room, writing down the hurtful words thrown at him like stones. Eventually, his abusive mother left with his uncle, but years later she was killed by a drunk driver. On the day she died, Walden didn't feel sadness, he felt relief. He had always hated his mother because she mistreated him and never offered him any sense of motherhood. The next morning, Walden finds Bill furious. His colleagues inform him that Norman, the father who burned his daughter in the oven at the beginning of the film, has been released. A clerical error caused the prosecution to miss the deadline for submitting evidence. And the most insulting part? The monster requested a new oven for his home. Enraged and shocked, Walden returns home and turns to heavy drinking. Consumed by anger, Walden does something he has never done before. He goes to Norman's house. He shoves Norman's head violently into the oven as the man begs for mercy. But Walden, his eyes filled with fury, whispers, "You shouldn't have gotten out of prison." Walden turns on the oven and cooks Norman brutally to death. He returns to bed, feeling no remorse, only an unfamiliar sense of relief. The next day, he receives a call from Bill informing him of Norman's gruesome murder. Walden pretends to be shocked. In a later scene, Cal's small body is finally discovered in a remote forest. His mother collapses into endless sobbing, and Bill tries, unsuccessfully, to soothe her shattered soul. Walden appears at the scene, overwhelmed by a silent aura of horror at the gruesome sight. At Cal's funeral, the priest steps up and says the boy is now in God's embrace and in a better place. But Bill cannot stand it, he shouts sarcastically, questioning how God could allow a 9-year-old innocent child to be kidnapped and murdered. And in a small tragic detail, we learn that the last thing Cal ate before he was killed was chocolate bars. After the funeral, Boyd praises Walden for what he did with the robber. Walden tries to apologize, but Boyd reassures him he did nothing wrong, he was brave. The judge adds that the city has become more dangerous, so he has decided to grant Walden a permit to carry a firearm. Later, Emily appears at the courthouse again. She asks Walden to accompany her to a family event. Walden hesitates, but eventually he agrees. Walden then accompanies Emily to her parents' home, where he meets them for the first time. In an unexpected turn of conversation, he discovers that Emily's father used to be a close friend of Walden's father. But the meeting carries tension. Emily's father expresses deep resentment toward Walden's mother, hinting that her behavior caused them harm in the past. Walden doesn't hesitate. He responds with blunt honesty. "I know very well my mother was a whore." After the sharp exchange, Emily drives Walden back home. On the way, he realizes, as if admitting it to himself for the first time, that this is the longest he has gone without touching a pen or writing a single word. Suddenly, without warning, Emily leans in and kisses him before driving away. The next day, Bill and Sally visit George and ask if he has seen any suspicious people recently. George innocently denies it, and the detectives ask him to report any detail, no matter how small, related to Cal's murder. He agrees, but at that moment, Sally notices a chocolate bar in George's hand, the same brand Cal had eaten before he was killed. Later, inside the courtroom, the case revolves around a nurse named Catherine, accused of harming patients to the point of killing them. One of the victims had died recently, his body covered in bruises. When the doctor mentions that the victim suffered from cataracts, Walden suddenly remembers the old man he saw at the hospital, the one who begged him, trembling, to stop her. It becomes clear that several other patients died with similar symptoms. Boyd asks the prosecutor if there is any witness who saw the nurse committing these acts. The prosecutor answers no. With no direct evidence and no reliable witnesses, Catherine is released without conviction. That evening, Nurse Catherine works alone at the hospital. An emergency alarm rings from one of the rooms. Annoyed, she walks in, only to be stunned by the sight of Walden waiting for her. Moments later, he begins torturing her. He asks if she is responsible for the deaths and abuse of the patients. After a series of brutal torment, she finally confesses. Walden doesn't hesitate. He grabs a leather belt, beats her mercilessly, then strangles her until her body exhales its final breath. In the morning, Bill and Sally arrive at the crime scene. The sight horrifies them. Sally tries to link the murder to George, referencing the chocolate incident, but Bill responds firmly. George has the mind of a 10-year-old. He can't do something like this. In a later scene, Walden and Emily attend an elegant party. But suddenly, Walden sees the ghost of his mother among the guests. Terrified beyond words, he leaves without saying anything. Emily is left alone, stunned and hurt. Meanwhile, Bill and Sally watch George from a distance. They see him playing with a little Mexican boy, giving him a chocolate bar, then taking him to his house. They storm in quickly, only to find George and the child happily playing a video game. The child insists George didn't hurt him, but Bill still arrests George as a precaution. The next day, Walden shows up at the station furious, demanding to know why George was arrested. Bill explains that George might be connected to Cal's disappearance, but Walden refuses the idea completely, insisting George couldn't do such a thing. Walden goes to the cell, confronts George, and asks if he kidnapped and killed the children. George swears he didn't and begs not to die in this place. Walden calms him and reassures him. Later at home, Walden is drunk. When Emily arrives, she finds him in an unfamiliar state. She scolds him for leaving her at the party without explanation and for ignoring her calls. Walden apologizes and kisses her, and soon they find themselves in a passionate embrace. At midnight, Emily wakes up. She sees a faint light coming from a nearby room. She follows it and discovers stacks of notebooks filled with painful accounts of Walden's childhood. The insults, the isolation, the chronic emotional suffering. Suddenly, Walden appears and asks what she is doing. She looks at him and asks how he endured and lived through all that pain. She asks Walden to get rid of his diaries and start a new life, but he refuses, seeing those memories as an inseparable part of who he is. After that, she decides to leave him, and he doesn't try to stop her, realizing that his deep understanding of pain is something he can never share with anyone. Later, Bill receives a call from Walden telling him that George isn't responsible for the crimes. Walden explains that every time George is shown a suspect, he simply describes them as a very bad man, even when the perpetrators are women, like the nurse, Catherine. Before Bill can respond, Walden suddenly hangs up and walks toward a group of thugs harassing a woman in the street. He tries to intervene, but they stab him brutally. In a final moment of consciousness, he shoots one of them dead before collapsing. The next day, Bill visits George in his cell and tells him Walden is injured. Upon hearing the news, George asks to show them something bad. George leads Sally and Bill to an abandoned building far from the police station. Once there, he refuses to enter, insisting that the place is bad. After Sally restrains him, the two detectives go inside alone, only to be shocked by the sight of scattered skeletons belonging to all the missing Mexican children from past years. By analyzing what they discovered, Bill concludes that George used to play with the children before they disappeared, and it was the kids who told him about this place, and about a man who used to take them there, paying them for acts beyond imagination. Meanwhile, Walden regains consciousness in the hospital to find his father by his side, deeply shaken by his condition. 3 weeks later, Walden is released and moves in with his father. Judge Boyd visits him, expressing his admiration for Walden's bravery. During their conversation, Walden glances at Boyd's car, impressed by its luxury. But while examining it, he notices a torn piece of fabric in the back seat, identical to the material from little Cal's clothes. A wave of shock hits him. That night, Walden loads his gun and heads to Boyd's house, where he confronts him directly about the murdered children. Faced with the evidence, Boyd admits that his motives stem from a pathological attraction to children that has followed him since he was 17, even confessing that he felt similar impulses toward Walden when he was a child. Boyd says he intends to turn himself in, but Walden refuses to let him escape justice and decides to deliver it himself. In a later scene, Bill and Sally visit Walden at his home. Their looks suggest a silent understanding that they know far more than they're saying. They inform him that he has been officially cleared of killing the thug, and that new witnesses appeared out of nowhere claiming he acted in self-defense. Walden is stunned, knowing the incident happened on an empty street with no witnesses at all. The next day, the police announced that Boyd was found dead in his home, in what has been ruled a suicide. After that, Walden returns to the typing competition, where he types at an incredible 359 words per minute, just 2 words shy of the world record. And that's the end of the film. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.